hold on tight. The champ is here. Mikey is raising the roof. He is loving it.
Let's be real for a second.
Let's be real. I'm excited to be real today. Mikey, we're now explain yourself.
I don't hate Russell Wilson.
Todd hates T.Y. Hilton. I know why he likes Nick Foles. Do you know why? Because he scored 55 points against them in the championship game last year.
Running backs in Andy Reid's system is just fantasy gold mine. Sign me up there, man.
Yeah, and he's passing for 1,000 too, because his offensive weapons are shit.
Maybe. Oh my God. I can't even believe this, Eric. Todd comes out with some outlandish shit.
Come on.
But that one wins the night.
You deserve the torture of watching those games if you get him.
There's a problem with all those names. None of those guys are good.
Exactly. That's my point. That is 100% my point.
Hey. All I'm saying. Hey, I'm a very unique individual. You know, that's the.
I'm sure all the owners think so.
Oh, man. Just when I think that they're out, they pull me back in.
Welcome to another edition of the MHA podcast. We're going to talk about week 5 and what went on there and a lot of news that took place this past weekend. Same old crew back once again. Fellas, how are you? As Mikey walks off on camera.
Doing all right. Doing good. You know, 3-2, still good.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had to turn down the baseball game because you didn't want to hear George Springer on the podcast.
No, I can hear him outside of my headphones right now. The Astros defeating Tampa, staying alive for the time being. I know everybody wants to see the storyline of the Astros and the Dodgers, but both are in tough situations as of now, although the Dodgers kind of helped themselves with whatever 15 runs they scored. But let's talk about fantasy football. You guys ready to do that?
Yeah. Let's talk some football.
Let's talk some football. We had some football this past weekend. A lot of craziness in terms of games being moved. Obviously, one of the bigger ones from this weekend was the New England-Denver game got moved from the Monday to next Sunday due to the positive test in the Patriots organization. Made life a little bit difficult for those teams, but I think they all adapted well in terms of having backup, especially for the Tennessee Buffalo game. Weren't sure if that was going to happen, but so that was kind of crazy for sure for those who had players in those games. No one really seemed to complain too much about anything. They just put in their backups or picked up guys, and everything went pretty smooth. So I was happy to see that. Perhaps the biggest news of the weekend, or maybe the second biggest news.
To me, the most amazing thing about the news is that whatever goes on in the world, it exactly fits the number of pages that they're using in the paper that day. Interesting concept.
But we're going to talk about is the release of Le'Veon Bell. Bell and head coach Adam Gase just did not see eye to eye. And if you've seen Adam Gase's eyes, then no one would really be able to be eye to eye because he's a lunatic. A big reason we pushed the podcast to Wednesday night was to see if any team would pick up Bell today. And that did not happen unless I missed something. But what do you guys think about that? Mikey, Le'Veon Bell getting released.
It was bound to happen. Like, it's weird. It's been like just a bad match ever since he was signed. Like, he took all that money, then there was all those rumors he wasn't getting along with the coach, just never happy with his role. It just didn't work. It's terrible.
Todd, what do you think about all of it?
I mean, it was just like I said, it was bad from the start. I mean, here's the thing: we talked about in a few years. Well, back Le'Veon Bell being maybe the best running back in the league in reality and fantasy, and now it's just like, you almost like he has to go to a team that's that's already stacked already, because I think if he goes to another team that makes him the focal point, I just don't think that's going to really work for him, whether it's in reality or fantasy. So, Le'Veon Bell was great before, but now it's he's kind of a number two. It really is a number two. I don't think if he went to a team that really needs a running back, and there are some teams that need it, I mean, you got to just hope he goes to a team that has better offensive line. That's plain and simple. I mean, the Jets are a dumpster fire anyway, and even Le'Veon Bell couldn't even fix that, regardless with whether he was having problems with the coach. So yeah, it's bad all around.
Mikey, Le'Veon not being signed to a team today, does that speak volumes in what teams think about him, or is it more about maybe he's asking too much? What do you think the situation of him not being signed after 24 hours?
I just think he's taking his time to decide where he wants to go. I mean, I think he said he wanted to go to a winner. So, I mean, that could be a number of places. I've heard people saying Kansas City. I've heard people saying New England. I mean, he's got options, so he just has to figure out what the best one is at this point. Like, honestly, for me, I think the best probably fit for him is Chicago because, you know, they lost Cohen. Montgomery hasn't shown to be anything special, but if he's looking for a winner, I don't know that necessarily constitutes
They're
what he's
4-1.
looking for.
They're 4
I
and 1.
realize that, but that's me saying I don't buy it.
You and everyone else on this planet. So far in the season for Le'Veon Bell, he's only played in 2 games. He was dealing with an injury for most of the year. Geez, I'm trying to look at his stats here. With 13 attempts for 60 yards in his first game against Arizona, October 11th. 6 attempts for 14 yards. He's got 3 total receptions. So he may not even just be that good anymore. Just watching him, he seems a little sluggish at times, and he's always kind of had that kind of hesitant step. So we'll see if he gets picked up here before this week. And obviously with COVID and all those regulations, it could be a couple weeks before he even gets to play, depending on how it all works out. Speaking of Le'Veon Bell, he's actually involved in a trade. How funny is that? In our league. And that'll kind of lead me to the next news here, and we'll talk about the trade in just a moment. But Dak Prescott, talk about a tough injury to watch. Compound fracture of his ankle, carted off. He had successful surgery. Will miss the rest of the season. Not a good thing for Eaton W's and his owner, Kevin Hall, who had to who just traded Josh Allen to me last week, and then Dak gets hurt. Didn't have a backup. He made a move pretty quick. It was about within an hour. And so let's talk about the trade, and we'll talk about Dak Prescott. But the trade from between Kevin and bye week. So Kevin traded Le'Veon Bell and Will Fuller to bye week. Miles, who in return gave up Lamar Jackson. So guys, grade the trade. Todd, we'll start with you.
I guess a given A because Lamar Jackson's one of the best quarterbacks right now in the league, and he makes up for all the points for part of Will Fuller and Le'Veon Bell for whatever that's worth. So yeah, you're getting one of the top quarterbacks in fantasy really quick. So
well, when you're grading the trade, you're kind of grading it as an overall, not just one team, unless you want to say that one team got an A, one got an F. But in terms of was it fair? Was it an equal trade, or do you think one team got better than the other?
I think it was equal just because Miles has Aaron Rodgers on his bench. So I think if he didn't have Aaron Rodgers, then I would say completely Kevin got the best of it, and Miles, slipped on that trade. But it was pretty even because you still have Aaron Rodgers who's putting up the points. So I think it was pretty even. It's pretty even. I think both of them got what they. Will Fuller can be what what Will Fuller's been in the past. Then I think both of them got A's.
What do you think, Miguel? You got a little smirk on your face.
It was just that last point that Todd made. If Will Fuller could be what Will Fuller was in the past, what does that mean? Injured?
Well, I'm just saying when he's on the field healthy, that's what. But yeah, I slipped
I'm sorry.
on that one.
You guys know how much I love Will Fuller, so I just had to kind of throw that out for a bit.
Don't you love him a little more these days, though?
Why?
What do you mean, why? The numbers he's putting up every week. He's a weekly fantasy contributor.
Am I wrong to remember that in one of the weeks he had a 0?
Correct. In week 2, he had a 0, but in every other week, 13, 12, 17, 12. That's better than a lot of wide receivers out there these days. But anyway, grade the trade.
For Kevin, it's an A+ because Lamar Jackson was the first round pick in our league. So, he got him for like a guy that was a 4th round pick and a guy that was a 9th round pick.
But can't you argue that Lamar Jackson has not played up to first round pick? What's the word I'm looking for here? He hasn't played up to a first round, being drafted in the first round. He had 36 points last week. And again, it's just he's underwhelming in a number of ways. You look at his numbers last season, he averaged 365 pass yards a game and 143 rush yards a game. This year, he's averaging 192 pass yards and 58 rush yards. He's not the same guy as he was last year, and it's been all season.
Look, I don't decide who's drafted in the first round and who's not. Okay.
Yeah, but if you're saying what you're saying, that you believe Lamar Jackson's a first round pick.
No, that's not what I was saying. I just said
then why are you using that against this defense? That doesn't make any sense. So what do you think of the trade? How did you, not in your honest opinion, was it an A, a B, C, D, or an F? Or an F minus, whatever?
It's really, really good based on the situation that Kevin was in. Like, I mean, he was left without his two quarterbacks. He was able to fire quickly and get a guy that should be able to help him. As far as Bell's concerned, that's going to be depending on where he goes. So, I mean, there's risk on both players from bye week, to be honest. So,
I agree. I think, yeah, in terms of it's tough to trade for a quarterback because there are a lot of decent ones out there. We could go through the top 5, and you could see Gordon Minshew and maybe even Ryan Fitzpatrick in that area, depending on the buy situation. But to get a guy, he bought low on Lamar Jackson, who's got a credible upside, it's not a bad deal. So I like the trade. We'll give it a B+. We'll kind of continue with the notes here. Obviously, Dak's out for the season. That's tough. I don't know for me, who's got Amari Cooper, am I worried? Maybe a little bit. I mean, you talk about Andy Dalton. He's one of the better backups in the league, or at least more highly paid guys who has seen success with wide receivers. But Mikey, you're the Zeke guy. Do you think they're going to run the ball more with Zeke?
they better. They want any chance of winning.
Good point.
Yeah, but I mean, if their defense is bad, they're going to have to throw.
That's true, but I think it'll change. But when Dak was in there, they were a team that was running their plays faster than anybody in the league. You know, it was an offense. It's like go, 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 go. Now that Dalton's in there, I think it's going to be slowed down. I mean, they'll still throw because they have the weapons there, but it's going to be more like a normal offense. So I think that helps Zeke as far as getting more carries. So that'll be helpful. I don't know that he'll get as many receptions as he was getting before, because this year he's been getting a lot of receptions.
Well, when you're playing from behind, that's going to happen. And that's still going to happen, but I agree, though, slow down the offense. I just hope as an Amari Cooper owner that maybe he kind of tunes in, Dalton tunes in towards him. It's getting frustrating to see CeeDee Lamb every week get all this money, even as a rookie. More news. Jimmy Garoppolo came in. He started, and he pulled him pretty quickly. He was just gosh awful. Eventually, C.J. Beathard came in to finish the game. They have a tough schedule coming up, so be wary, all you 49er player owners. After Atlanta Falcons dropped yet another game, pushing them to 0-5, owner Arthur Blank fired head coach Dan Quinn and GM Thomas Dimitrioff. I don't know what that means for the rest of the squad. Raheem Morris was named interim head coach. We'll see how that kind of affects the offense and the defense going forward. Obviously, we're a fantasy football podcast, so offense is where we're going to see. We'll see if Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley, Julio back in the lineup would probably help. Dalvin Cook left Sunday's game early to a groin injury. I saw that it wasn't serious, but he's probably not going to play this week. So it'll be interesting. Someone has Madison. I think actually Cooper's cousins has Madison. So he's the Dalvin Cook owner. Good job, Dylan. You're welcome. I don't know if I drafted him for him, but I'll take credit for it.
You drafted his team, so you should.
You got a friend with you there, Miguel?
Yeah, he's gonna bring me luck in my matchup this week.
He's holding a leprechaun. I know this is a kind of a radio broadcast or podcast, but he's got a little leprechaun with him. We all could use a little luck for sure. Speaking of luck, Todd could use some on Deontay Johnson, who left his game early for the second straight week. And obviously we saw amazing performance by a rookie who we'll talk about here in a second, I'm sure. A.J. Green's dealing with a hamstring. Baker Mayfield got beat up in his game. I think it was a rib injury. He ended up finishing the game, although not great. And the latest news, especially from Broncosville, no Melvin Gordon. Actually, I don't know if he's not going to play this week. Obviously, a DUI situation, a bye week hurting for some running back depth. Have we heard anything on Melvin Gordon? I assume he's not going to play this week. Maybe not for the next 3.
Well, they just said he didn't practice, but they haven't really said as far as if he's going to play or not. I would lean against it.
I guess he could appeal it
Yeah.
and he could play. But in the past, those players who have gotten DUIs have missed 3 games or have been suspended by the league for 3 games. So he
Yeah,
could
but
appeal it if he doesn't have a history of it. He could appeal it, play, and then maybe they drop it down to 2. We don't know. We're not lawyers on this show.
I can't see him appealing. They said he was driving like 75 miles down Spear and he failed every single test.
Sure, but what I'm saying by appeal is that if this is his first offense, they could knock off a game. And in the appeal process, depending on when that takes place, it may not even take place till next week. So he'd have an opportunity to play. I don't know. I don't know the inner workings of the NFL, but this is what I've seen in the past.
Well, and here's the other thing, and this comes from the Broncos end, but I heard that they were looking more into it because they have that thing now where because of COVID, like if you're reckless, then that's considered conduct detrimental to your team.
Oh boy.
So if they view it as, well, we tell you, try and stay away from stuff and you're out here going to bars and then getting a DUI on top of it.
He could be COVID for 2 weeks and suspended 3 games.
Oh, God.
Yeesh. Not good for the Broncos. Not good for bye week. All right. So any other news that I may have missed that you guys want to talk about? I think I hit everything.
Yeah, I think that was Le'Veon Bell and Gordon. That was it.
Mikey showing the 4. Is this for the Claypool news?
That was big, but it was more just a dig at Todd and Tom Brady.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. We'll go through the MHA standings right now. Leading the way this week was Lion Rip, who is now 3-2 after scoring a league high at 194 points. His lineup was dominant from top to bottom, sending the Belt Sanders to last place at 1-4. The defending champs sit in the 3rd spot at 3-2. At the top are the NWA and Cooper's Cousins, who are both 4-1 after coming away with a couple wins. A couple of top teams who suffered losses was yours truly and Butterfingers, who suffered losses, putting us down to 3-2, sitting in 4th and 5th respectively. Gonzo Cats also sit at 3-2 after sneak out a 119-110 win over bye week, sweating it out on Tuesday night. Gonzo Cats were down 110-98, so a 12-point deficit. And you had Derrick Henry, Devin Singletary, and Buffalo's defense. And so you figure with 3 players, you're probably going to be okay. It came down really to a late touchdown by Derrick Henry that put him over the top. Just 3 points from Singletary, big 0 from the Bills defense. Pollen comes out with the win. The next 4 teams are 2 and 3 in this order based on points: Eaton W's, Hot Tamales, Kilgore Trout, and Notorious CUP. And of course, bringing up the rear, as we mentioned, Belt Sanders and bye week at 1-4. Mikey coming up with a win. Good job.
Yeah, and I have to say thank you to Notorious CUP because he didn't score as many points, so now I have my average is down to 151 points against. So he helped.
Mikey was worried because he'd been seeing a lot of high point totals. So he said it last week if Notorious CUP would score at 170 points, you'd be surprised, or you may not have been on this podcast, but only came up with 91. trying to make it trying to even out that points against Mikey. Todd, you want to say anything quickly about your team suffering a loss? It wasn't all Tom Brady's fault.
No, I mean, obviously 2 goose eggs and an injury doesn't help. I mean, one goose egg's, tough enough to come back to try to overcome, but 2 and an injury, yeah, that's just so kind of just summed it up. It just summed it up right there.
All right, so let's talk about some top performers. Todd, I'll let you go first.
Start off Adam Thielen, 2 touchdowns, 25 points. I mean, Minnesota's not doing very well, but Adam Thielen just keeps on racking up the points. And, obviously we talked about earlier or in the preview podcast that, was Adam Thielen going to be the guy? And it looks like he has next to, Dalvin Cook when it comes to productivity. So good on Adam Thielen. And that was another player that you drafted for Cooper's cousin. So good job. Good job there, Eric. Good job.
Yeah, thanks. Thank me. I got to play him this week. It'll be fun to talk about. Thielen has a 25-point games, a 19-point game. He's been pretty spectacular so far this season. He's got 6 touchdown receptions. That offense kind of coming alive the last few weeks, and now with Dalvin Cook possibly out. Not that Alexander Madison was that bad to begin with, but obviously could hurt them a little bit. But I think they play Atlanta.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe they will score another 40-some points. Mikey, who's one of your top performers this past week?
Well, I'm going to cheat here, and I'm going to give you more than one.
Hold on. Let's. You want to put on your Astros hat before you start cheating? Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good. I like that. But no, I'm going to give this to Aaron's running backs. So Aaron's running backs were RB1 and RB2, Mike Davis and Todd Gurley.
That Mike Davis thing really peeves me off. I'm sorry. That should be McCaffrey. I'll be winning a lot more games, but obviously, I'm sorry. Go ahead, continue. Just peeve. That's all.
But yeah, I mean, Mike Davis putting on his best Christian McCaffrey impersonation with 26 points. And he just continues every single game to put up 8 or 9 catches every week. He has been incredible since taking over from McCaffrey. And then Todd Gurley, this is 2 weeks in a row that Todd Gurley has brought it for Aaron after kind of a slow start. So, yeah, I don't know. Both of his running backs look really good, which for Aaron's running backs to look good, he will not lose when that happens because he has one of the best receiving cores of any team in the league.
Not to mention the top quarterback in the league, I think, by points. So things are going well. I mean, he's got Hopkins, Metcalf, and Devontae Adams. And then to have these 2 running backs perform like they are, it's tough to live in this house, let me tell you, with Aaron, because of the BS and with his ego. It's just awful. But that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to do that in fantasy. So kudos to him. One guy I'll mention, you guys mentioned a couple of guys off my list. So after a couple of single-digit point total performances, Josh Jacobs back into the mix for NWA, 21 points, 77 rush yards, and 2 TDs. I thought maybe after a couple of quick, incredible weeks that he kind of fell back to earth. But then he rocks out 2 TDs against Kansas City. Oh, that's right. I have Kansas City's defense. Bull crap. That's what I have to say. In Kansas City, the Raiders, unbelievable. Anyway, Todd, do you have another one?
So I don't want to put more praise on Aaron, but DK Metcalf, Jesus, mother of God. 2 touchdowns. Dude's like a freak of nature. Obviously, I was kind of high on him during the wide receiver podcast and what he could do, and he hasn't disappointed. That's still gross, but yeah, DK Metcalf, and he drafted Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf back to back. So, man, can I go puke or crap? That'd just be great, right?
Yeah, he had that late touchdown. He just had 9 or more fantasy points in every game this season. Mikey, do you have another top performer?
Well, I don't, it didn't matter, but I just want to bring him up because I myself kind of pooped on this guy. I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, and Eric always poops on him. And that's Emmanuel Sanders. So the one time that he actually does well, then I just want to kind of shout him out.
He was in my surprise players section.
18 points, 12 catches.
Career high 12 catches.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, good for him. And I will continue to poo-poo him as well. That's not going to end on this podcast today. I think that's all the ones for top performers. I mentioned CeeDee Lamb, double figures in his last 3 or 4 games. He continues to do great things. Mikey, give me a worst performer from this past week.
Yeah, Mo, that team sure did suck last night. They just plain sucked. I've seen teams suck before, but they were the suckiest bunch of sucks that ever sucked.
Oh, where do you start? It seemed like this week was compared to the rest of these weeks was really, really like, I don't know, it was lower scoring.
Yeah.
So I got to give it to one of your guys and Amari Cooper. He kind of talked about,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know, and I sent you something I saw where his snap counts have been decreasing each and every week, and I don't really know why. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But to me, that almost means like he's banged up or has some sort of injury, and they're not saying what it is. But I don't know. I mean, for him to go from 26 points the week before to 3, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It was fun to watch and to see CeeDee Lamb and then Ezekiel Elliott get all those catches. Even Gallup, I think he ended up having 7 or 8 points. So it's not good. When you sent me that tweet, it makes me want to sell him and as quickly as I can, especially with Dalton coming in. But it's probably premature to do that. But if you're out there listening, I might be taking offers. It's definitely scary. Todd, how about a worst performer from you?
I'll go Juju.
Okay.
You know, obviously, you know, the number one going into the season, and he just hasn't been. He's been injured too, but he just hasn't really been that number one guy. I mean, it's been, you know, one week it's been Deontay Johnson, and then obviously this week we'll talk about Chase Claypool. You know, it just seems like the targets are, you know, going the other way. So yeah, Juju was drafted pretty high too as well. So I don't know. I mean, they did say today he didn't practice today. So I don't, like you said, I don't know if he's banged up or anything like that. But the targets seem to be going the other way. So, you know, if Deontay Johnson can stay healthy, that'd be nice. But Chance Claypool, we'll talk about him. He's put himself in a good position.
Yeah, Juju has had 6 targets or less in 3 of 4 games this year. They've already had their bye. He has had 2 double-digit point games this year, so maybe it's not too concerning. But obviously, with that Claypool situation and Johnson has had a lot more targets, you wonder if he's, I don't know, I wouldn't say he's falling out of favor, but I mean, maybe they're just the talent's rising to the top or the cream's rising to the top. And Roethlisberger just has a lot of options. So,
Yeah, because usually we've seen with Juju, especially in the red zone, that's where Big Ben always, for a while, all the time, would always go to Juju in the end zone, in the red zone. Not anymore as much. I mean, even try to, you know, down the field more, but that's been more Deontay Johnson, more of those long, you know, deep balls down the field. So that's something to think about too.
One guy that I had that didn't have a good week, since Mikey's going to pick my guy, I'm picking his guy. Oh, Tyler Lockett. 3 points last week, just 6 points this week, 9 total targets in those 2 games. Obviously, Metcalf got a lot of work. What are you seeing out there with Lockett as your guy, Miguel?
Yeah, I mean, I was really, really surprised about the poor performance this week, considering everybody's been burning Minnesota. So, I mean, that's kind of what I always know about Lockett. Lockett had these big breakout games like he had during the Dallas game where he had 30 points, and then he has these weeks where he's kind of meh. So, and then at the end, he ends up being a top 20 guy because you put everything together. That's what it makes. So,
Yeah,
he's never been like a consistent 10 to 15 guy.
How's he going to do this week?
He's on a bye.
So not very good. One guy I'll mention. Do you guys have another one? Another worst performers? Anybody can go.
Yeah, and I'll mention this one because, you know, he made the trade for Josh Allen, and he got rid of Joshua Kelly, and so I assume Kevin thought, well, that Joshua Kelly will be the guy, Eckler out. As it turned out, it was Justin Jackson and not Joshua Kelly, so that kind of sucked for him.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it was game script. I mean, I watched most of that game, and it just looked like Justin Jackson found the hole quicker, caught 5 passes as well, 13 points. At least for Kevin, eating W's, he's got Justin Jackson on his bench. So he's got that in case. But for Joshua Kelly, just 29 yards rushing and 1 catch. Todd, did you have any more worst performers?
I'd say Tyler Higbee. That's kind of only 2 points. I mean, obviously there was a lot of buzz with him going into the season, but that Rams offense, I mean, obviously Woods and Cup, still the primary targets, but really didn't go to him a whole lot in that game. It was more of the running game anyway in that game per se, because with Henderson 2 touchdowns. So that kind of, especially in the red zone, because both of those touchdowns were in the red zone. Usually he goes to Higbee in those situations anyway if they're not running the ball. So yeah, kind of disappointing there. And Gerald Everett actually got a lot of targets in that game too. They were going to him a lot. So just like the running back situation with the Rams, you don't know who's going to. Higbee could have a bounce back week next week, but yeah, 2 points for a tight end. There was a lot of hype going into. Yeah, not great.
I think that Rams offense needs to throw more in general. Obviously,
Yeah.
when you're winning, you're not going to change too much. But Mikey can agree with me. It just doesn't seem like they're having to throw 40 to 50 times. It's been kind of in the 30 to 35. They run the ball, and but they're winning games. So I mean,
Yeah.
their schedule gets tougher. So you hope that plays a factor in them having to throw more. But it's kind of annoying as a fantasy owner of Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
They want to run. They run the ball more than anybody in the league, and that's what they want to do. So the only way they're going to throw is if you make them throw. So you got to put up points against them.
It's so my wide receivers, who I absolutely loved going into this season, has been shitting all over me. And it's driving me bananas. Good call on the Tyler Higbee. He had 3 touchdowns in that game in week 2. Since then, 6, 4, and then 2 points. So one of the things not working well for Cooper's Cousins. But let's talk about the surprise player. Obviously, the number one guy for all of us is the 2020 second-round pick from
Notre Dame.
Very good. Just because we talked about it while the game was on. 36 points, led all wide receivers in scoring. He also had a rushing touchdown to go along with. He had a rushing touchdown to go along with the 7 receptions, 110 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Had a 5th one that was called back. He did have a 13-point game in week 2 versus Denver. Should own. Our talk was he's going to be the number 1 waiver wire pickup, but he's on somebody's team.
Yeah.
He's on NWA's team. So someone saw this. I looked it up and I forgot to type it out, but he picked him up a few weeks ago. He might have picked him up after that game against Denver, but yeah, he belongs in NWA. So not much really to talk about. My question was going to be, so are we all rushing to pick him up? But he's already picked up by a team. Maybe should NWA trade him off while the hot is good, or the hot iron is hot, I guess the cliche is.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on if your wide receiver core, if you can update it. I mean, I'm hoping Deontay Johnson can get back for him, but Claypool definitely showed an even set a Pittsburgh franchise record, and there was some there's been some great wide receivers for that team, so good for him.
He's got to sell him. Unless Mike Evans has a question mark next to his name, so he might not be 100%. But he's got Diggs, he's got Mike Evans, and he's got James Robinson as flex. He's also got Henry Ruggs. I would try to get. I don't want to say I would try to get anything for him, but it seems pretty good so far. So I don't know what he really has to do. Don't ask me about what to do in trading and all that stuff. I have no clue. But good for him. And if things keep going, he's got himself another amazing wide receiver. Surprise player from you, Miguel?
The surprise for me is from the quarterbacks. 3 of the top 6 guys were named Tannehill, Herbert, and Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
What world are we living in this week?
I don't know. I'm not doing it right. But yeah, for sure. Like I was mentioning, the Gordon Minshew. I'll tell you this. I liked watching Justin Herbert, though. He's confident. He's got a good. Those balls he was throwing in the end zones, in the far corners, man, they had some zip on him. I liked watching him play. I'm excited for him going forward. Like if this was a dynasty league, I would do whatever I could to get him on my team. But he's kind of fun to watch.
Why do you always call him Gordon Minshew?
Is it not Gordon Minshew? What is his name?
It's Gardner.
Gardner Minshew. Because Gardner's a stupid name. That's why. Only call him Farmer Minshew then. Jesus Christ, Gardner. Whatever. Beard Minshew.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't think
agree.
anybody Tannehill being number one quarterback this week. That's
Especially against the Bills' defense, who's
right.
been solid so far this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan Tannehill's probably trying to shut up all those, haters that were probably like thinking, oh, it's just a 1-year wonder thing. And yeah, he's good for Ryan Tannehill.
It helps to have A.J. Brown back for sure. He looked pretty good out there as well. Todd, did you have another surprise player?
Nah, just the Claypool one was my biggest surprise. There wasn't any really, because just this overall for this week, there wasn't anyone that performances or it was kind of just
Wrong.
Yeah.
You didn't do your homework. So
No,
let me tell you, I got a list right in front of me. Let me tell you. How about Travis Fulgham? Huh?
I predicted that.
You predicted that? You're such a liar.
23
points, had 13 targets, 10 receptions.
Just like Andy Isabella, that's not gonna last.
I would still say it's a surprise, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, again, that Eagle
Surprise means in the dictionary.
I know what it means, but I'm just saying that Eagles wide receiver core. I mean, you're just not. They throw anybody.
I'm not saying he's going to be great for the rest of the year. I'm just saying here's the surprise players of the week. You know what week stands for? Mikey, is that a surprise to you?
Maybe they found a diamond in the rough, Todd. This is how these things happen. Remember Victor Cruz? 1 week turned into a career. All I'm saying.
I just like how you use diamond in the rough.
Ah.
Anyway, how about Brandon Cooks, who hadn't done anything up to this point? And he had 22 points, 8 receptions, 161 yards, and a touchdown against Jacksonville. How about Mike Williams, who I picked up to try to keep away from Joe Vaccarelli, and he ends up putting up 22 points. I don't have to rush to the waiver wire to pick him up. He's already on my team. Surprise.
Yes, and anticipation. That makes a good fantasy player.
Now, did I think he was going to have 22 points? Heck no. It was just to make sure if he was going to go Mike Thomas.
And let's be fair, he wouldn't have, but Keenan Allen got hurt early in that game.
That's true. That is true. All right. So the Doe move of the week. Do we know what this is, gentlemen? There's only one candidate that I saw. I was close. If I would have played 2 players, I would have only lost by 2. So that doesn't count, but I'm close.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of blowouts. So,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that really was kind of close was the matchup between the Gonzo Cats and bye week.
Yep, that's the game. In that game, bye week lost by 9 points. Star of the Steelers defense, who scored 9 points, left the Colts defense on the bench that scored 19.
Yeah.
So that would give him a 1-point win. Now, I mean, that's hard to say because who's not going to start the Steelers defense,
especially against
Philly.
The offensive line. Yeah.
But that's the only Doe move of the week that I saw because everything else was just a lot of destruction, a lot of big point totals against small point totals. So, way to go, bye week. You could have won. What else do you guys want to talk about? This is kind of the free for all. Anything jump out at you guys?
Todd, who are you ready to lose to this week?
I'm not ready to lose. I'm gonna win.
Kilgore Trout. You just beat me this past week.
And his quarterback is Gordon Minshew. Yeah, I can do it too. See, yeah. I mean, my tight end situation, I fixed that, so that hopefully.
Wait a minute. What do you mean by fix that?
Well, I've the tight ends that I went on the waiver wire a little bit better than Mo Ali Cox was, so that's.
Oh, so you haven't even picked up this tight end yet?
Well, I put in a waiver for 2 tight ends.
Oh, we'll see. And whatever tight end you pick up are going to be the solution, huh?
least for that, I get Aaron Jones back this week because that didn't help either. So
That'll help more than anything else.
yes, that'll help, and maybe getting Godwin back. So that might help too.
Maybe, I don't know. I guess I heard he was running.
They said
he's ready, but
limited. He was limited in practice. They're just limiting watching his reps. I was like, all right, they could, watch it. I mean, again, and two, if I have to, I go Tim Patrick. So it's
it's gonna be tough for you. Well, while we're talking about it, let's just get into the schedule for next week. More buys in week 6. Seahawks. So anybody playing Aaron Belts, who's playing Aaron next week? They'll have to worry about the Russell Wilson show and the DJ DK Metcalf. Thank you. So you don't have to worry about that. So let's get into the schedule. It's right in front of me. Why am I even talking about this? All right, let's start with me. 3-2 Lemonheads will take on 4-1 Cooper's Cousins. So the two teams I drafted will be going head to head, and I'm just not feeling great. There's a lot of red. I know everybody looks at their team and they have like the little teams who they're playing against, and they'll tell you they're green if they're good matchups, red if they're bad matchups. A lot of red on my team. I'm not feeling good at all about this week. Hot Tamales 2-3 will take on 1-4 bye week. And we'll see if Le'Veon Bell's playing on this team at that point because he might not have Melvin Gordon. Butterfingers, we mentioned 3-2 will take on up-and-coming Kilgore Trout, who's 2-3. Belt Sanders looking to get out of that hole at 1-4, taking on now the Lamar Jackson lad eating W's. Big matchup between 3-2 Gonzo Cats and 4-1 NWA. And Lion Rip 3-2, who will not have Russell Wilson or DK Metcalf, will face off against 2-3 Notorious CUP. So there you go. That's the schedule. Can it be week 7 yet? I have to figure out my tight end situation. No Darren Waller. And I've seen what's out there. And it ain't pretty.
It's not pretty.
It's around for trades this week, and it's awful. You figure at 3-2, I'd be feeling pretty good about things. I'm feeling so terrible about it. No Thursday night football this week.
No, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool to have Tuesday football.
Yeah. That's one of the last Tuesday night football game. I think it was Philly and Green Bay. I think, and it was like a blizzard outside. I think too. So.
No, if I read it right, maybe I heard this wrong. I believe the broadcast said it. It was the Joe Webb game. Remember Joe Webb, Miguel? Bet you do.
Oh, you're right.
Because I think so I don't know if it was that game. Who was Joe? Was Joe Webb playing for Minnesota?
Yeah.
So I think the blizzard caused that. If I heard that right, but that's why I got moved to Tuesday. But yeah, Joe Webb. Another reason Mikey needs to wear the Astros hat. Next, so if you don't have anything else, we can leave it with that. On next week's show, we're not going to do much in terms of maybe we'll get to our top performers and worst performers, but we're going to take a look at the top players from every position. Instead of just kind of going with the normal podcast, let's mix it up a little bit and see after 6 weeks who are the top 5 quarterbacks, who are the top 5 running backs. Maybe we'll go a little deeper than 5, but we'll kind of give you that, and we'll also redraft the first round to see where those top players would go if the season were to start here in, I guess at that point, week 7. So, gentlemen, thanks for coming on. Try to stay COVID-free out there if you can. Sounds like it's spiking out there, so wear your masks and wash your hands. So, for Mikey Renault, Todd Diamond, I'm Eric Lansing. We'll see you next time on the MHA podcast.